Hi, thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you.
Hi, Allison. I'm also very honored to join here today, and thank you very much for inviting me.
So, I'm really excited to talk about your work. People are talking about multi-agent systems and the potential of multi-agent systems, and it seems to be the direction that people are thinking AI is going to take us. So, we're actually going to talk about two of your papers, The More the Stronger, investigating how multi-agent AI shapes human opinions, and Multi-Agents Are Social Groups, investigating social influence of multiple agents in human-agent interactions. So before we get into that, tell us what led you into the AI/ML space and the multi-agent space specifically.
I will phrase myself as a HCI and AI PhD student. So HCI comes first, and then the AI comes next. So regarding HCI, we usually work on the human-computer interactions, but like in recent years, it's all about the human-AI interaction. So what brings me here, I find myself like really interested in human side. So I decided to investigate how all the technologies can influence humans from user aspect. Actually, that's my starting point. But now I'm working on multi-agent systems. I think it's also related to the motivation of the work. Currently in the HCI field, a lot of people are working on developing all kinds of agents for humans, like maybe you heard about the AI companionship. I think that's very hot topic, and you can using the agent for people's social support and maybe for some the mental illness, supporting those kind of issues. But I think a research field that is not being explored in this field is the exploration of multi-agent with humans. So not many people, or let's say very few people, has been to this part, but I think it's very interesting and has great potential in the future.
Now, so let's start at the very beginning. What is a multi-agent system?
So I think as the multi-agent system sounds like, it's a system with multiple interacting intelligent agents. So that's the definition. But if we talk about multi-agent, we cannot ignore the single agent. So usually the multi-agent systems, they are designed or used to solve the problems that are difficult or impossible for single agents to tackle. That's why we have multi-agent, and usually it's for reasoning or thinking abilities. Like a very common thought about multi-agent is, if we have single agent, it is not good enough in solving math problem or some complex planning problems. But if you have multiple agents where they can interact with each other and perhaps like debate or challenge each other, it's very similar to the human group dynamics. It can improve its performance and therefore like bring into better results.
And this is kind of the crux of your work, which is introducing the human element and how the multi-agent systems could influence human behavior, human opinions, how it can shape those things. So why is understanding how AI agents influence human opinions such a critical challenge in this human AI coevolution?
Yeah, I think that's the most critical issue about this work, and also about the human AI coevolution trend. So I think to start with, it's about the AI agents themselves, because the AI agents, they are like getting very prevalent in our lives. So this is very obvious. So we use ChatGPT, we use Gemini maybe every day for this kind of works, for writing and maybe different tasks. So these are the cases where we interact with AI agents, right? And also in some other cases, the AI agents are more implicit, like in the recommendation systems, when you're searching using the Perplexity, it's also AI agents, but maybe you don't see it very explicitly. So in all these kind of cases, the AI agents, they will give you their information, and sometimes it's a conclusion or opinion. And in this kind of cases, humans will somehow be influenced by the AI agents. So I think there is some recent research in the HCI in 2023. There's a paper published on Kai. It's exploring the case where humans co-writing with the AI agents, and they found that if the AI agents, such as ChatGPT, it has inner bias. For example, if you are writing on the topic like should we advocate for maybe the president, and the AI agents has an inner bias of we should, the people who are co-writing with the AI agent will also more likely to go with this opinion. So this is a very classic case of the influence of the AI agents on humans. And also another thing I think of is from the psychology fields, because in psychology, researchers think humans are very susceptible to cues. So whatever you see every day, no matter the environment, the information on social media, they can always be to some way influential. And the AI agents, they are more powerful than what we usually have. So we can think they can be more influential than the traditional information sources. So that's a very critical thing that we should explore, that at this era where AI agents are super prevalent.
Just generally outlining the problem space, what is the prior work, what's been done before? So you mentioned some of the ways already that we know that individual AI agents can affect user decisions. Are there any other things that you're working off of or building off of in this work?
Previous to this work, which starts in the 2024. So earlier than that, in like 2022 and 2023, we can see a growing trend of works on first the AI agents. So especially there are a lot of publicized frameworks and open source frameworks on the multi-agent systems. So for example, in the 2023, there is a framework called AutoGPT. It is released, and I checked it today. It now has 176 stars on GitHub. So it's very popular frameworks about multi-agent systems. And also another one is called the Camel, CAMEL. It's also well-established multi-agent framework. And also, I think the interesting thing about that is it not only has the multi-agent framework about the workflow. So workflow means the multi-agent framework is built for increasing the work efficiency and the reasoning abilities. But it also has the functions of social simulations. So that's quite interesting about this Camel framework. It also has like 12,000 stars on GitHub, so it's also quite popular. Yes. So we have the observation that multi-agent systems is getting increasingly prevalent, but within the field where the humans interact with multi-agent, it's actually not a very well-established field. So there is one work that is very, I think, popular about this. The full name is Generative Agents Interactive Simulacra of Human Behavior. In that work, the authors, they create a very game-like scenario. So they create a lot of LLM-based humans who live in a simulated town. So the humans, they live together, and you can give them some tasks by the natural language. Like you can ask one person to celebrate your birthday, and then this simulated humans supported by the large language models, it will have some generative behaviors, like it will send invitations to other villagers and ask them to his home for parties, and then like maybe host a party. So that's very interesting work. And though it doesn't mention about multi-agent, it is indeed a multi-agent scenario where you can create the small like generative agents, and they can interact with each other. I think
sounds like the evolution of Sims, or
yes,
the
exactly.
video game, the computer game.
Yes, Exactly, because in their paper's abstract, they also say the paper is inspired by The Sims. Yeah, I think the paper is like published on the HCI venues, but it has very big impact in the AI community. But when I talk about it with a lot of people in my field, they are like having some concerns about this work because it's more about the agent simulation, but doesn't involve any real humans in the user study. So from the traditional aspect, it's not a HCI study.
I don't think anybody considers themselves or wants to consider themselves a follower. There's a lot of sort of human behavior research kind of embedded into this paper. So the research on human conformity is well established. Going into the social theory a bit, what are some of the factors, even outside of agents, that typically drive social influence?
Yes. I think that's also very like critical comment HCI researchers will usually get, because as you might know, the HCI is human-computer interaction. So we borrow the disciplines from the social science and also the techniques from computer science. So there's always people will say if it's a theory is from like some established fields, what's the novelty of the work, right? But I think it's more like doing some magics. So even though the tricks behind those like magics, it doesn't seem very surprising, but if we just look at the results, it's still very astonishing and significant. So I think back to the sociology theory here, there is indeed some very critical factors about social influence. The first one and most significant one is, of course, the group size. So it might sound obvious, but actually in the sociology, they will say group size plays the most significant roles in the social influence. And the relationship is within a larger group or more cohesive groups, there tends to be stronger social influence. And I remember there's a paper published in 2017, which is researchers making people watching two videos on YouTube. So they are both of the topics of environmental protection, but one video with just 100 views and another video with 1 million views. And by making people watching these two videos, they found that people who watch the second video, which has 1 million views, tend to think this is more salient problems. So this is a very, I think, classic example of group size on the social influence. I think that there's also factors like the group identity. So we can tell it from our daily life maybe. If someone that is very similar to you, maybe from the demographic way, like they have similar occupation, similar age, similar education level, and they tell you something or they behave in some way, it tends to influence you stronger. But for the people that are not similar, you might say, why care about them, right? So it's less likely to be influenced. I think other than that are a lot like other factors, but that will be in more complex settings. So for example, the group dynamics, there are also research about group dynamics on the social influence. So for example, if the group members, they behave in a very collective way, so people are all wearing the similar clothes and saying some similar things. They have a community slogan and they behave like they have a very strong cohesion with the group. It also shows that such group will have stronger social influence. But this is debatable because there's also other research on like the group diversity, which reveals that if the group consists of more diverse participants, more diverse people, it can also be stronger social influence because people will tend to think that such group has more diverse information, and if the people believe in something, it tends to be correct. So the group dynamics is also a factor, but I think it's more complex.
Interesting. So if a diverse group of people or all believe the same thing, then you might think it's more likely to be true because why do all of these different types of people believe this same idea?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so tell us about your experiment. So for the experimental setting, actually, even before we get to that, you list in the paper the three research questions that you were really like setting out to answer. What were those three questions?
Yes. So the first question, and it's about the basis of this paper, is we want to know whether the multi-agent is more powerful than the single agent. And in this context, we configure the question to be whether the interacting with multi-agent will lead to stronger opinion change than interacting with single agent. So if this result is no, then there's no meaning to continue. But if the answer is yes, I think it's quite surprising because no previous study have proved this, and also it's has a lot of the real world implications. So we want to know about this first, and then it's more like understanding why. So the second question is about people's perception. So when interacting with a multi-agent system, do people tend to perceive different social influence than interacting with the single agent? And for this social influence, we consider two aspects. The first one is informational influence, which is whether you think you are persuaded or you gain more information. And the second aspect is on the normative influence, which is you're pressured to agree with the group. So these are the two aspects. And the thirdly is we want to know which demographics are more likely to be influenced by such kind of multi-agent influence or single agent influence. So this is more like examining different demographic factors such as age, gender, and education levels, whether they has impact on people's susceptible to the agent's influence.
Tell us about the experiments.
Okay. So as you have introduced earlier, we have two studies. The first one is about people watching two paintings, and they rate their evaluations on the two paintings. And the second one is about the social topic discussions, where the people have two social topics. The first one is about self-driving cars, and the second one is about the teenagers playing the violent games. So in both experiments, we make the users to first have a first impression about the paintings or the topics, and they will write down their answers or make their evaluations. Then they will get to interact with either a single agent or multiple agents. And the interaction is having conversational discussion. So they will just engage in a discussion room and talk with agents for around 10 minutes. And then they will look at the paintings or the social topics again and re-evaluate their answers. So we will compare the before and after results and see if there's any difference.
What were the quantitative and qualitative measures that you were looking at for these experiments?
So for the quantitative measures, we measure about people's opinions, and because we choose the the paintings and the social topics, they don't have a definite answer. So it's you can either choose maybe like the painting or dislike the painting. So there's a sliding bar. You can rate your
scale.
perception. Yeah, and so that's for the quantitative measures. And then for the qualitative, it's about user experience. So we ask users, would you think you the arguments from the agents are more accurate and convincing, or would you think you feel any pressure to agree with them? So you can the users can answer in the open-ended forms, so there's no restriction on their answers.
Okay, so tell us about your findings.
So I think the most important finding we got is when comparing the multi-agent condition and the single-agent condition, we actually found that multi-agent condition can create social pressure on human participants, which made them to agree with the agents more. So this is supported by two findings. The first one is the opinion change, because if the agent they has opinion that's opposing you, some of the participants will likely to change their opinions. But in the multi-agent settings, the opinion change is significantly more than participants in the single agent. So this is one aspect. And also when the agent's opinions are aligned with you, it also has some impact, which is opinion reinforcement. So imagine someone is agreeing with you and a group of people is agreeing with you, right? So we actually found that in multi-agent condition, people tends to have a more polarized opinion after interacting with multi-agent compared with people in single agent. And I think some interesting thing we got from the study is from the qualitative part, where I remember we got comments from the users, such as when we asked about their experience with agents, and some said interacting with multi-agent settings make them feel like an outsider, because the multi-agent, they hold a similar viewpoints and they will agree with each other. And when humans are placed in such conditions, they feel like, oh, there's a sense of exclusion. I'm not part of them. And this, from the sociology theories, it's because like people has a desire to affiliate with groups. But previously we just know like humans will affiliate, they have desire to affiliate with human groups. And this is the first time I think we know that we will also want to affiliate with agent groups. And I think that's a surprising finding experience.
I think this is kind of part of what drives the interest around multi-agent systems, because people are scared of the potential for misinformation and kind of influencing populations, countries. So what are the implications of these findings, in your opinion?
I think that can lead to two sides. So the first one, which is the positive side of this finding, is of course we can use multi-agent as social groups to support people. So especially when some cases when people lack of social support, like for some children in the rural places, they might don't have their parents around them. So this kind of children, they grow up without sufficient support from the grown-ups and also peers. So they may lack of the opportunity to build their, social values and have adopt the social norms. So I think very large motivation of this study is we want to somehow prove that the agents, they can counterpart the humans' influence and also the group norms in influencing the people. So when it comes to the children without social support, it somehow shows that we can build the agent systems to support them from emotionally or socially and give them the group experience that they don't have. I think because currently there is already building the AI teachers for students, but maybe we can go further and think about building the AI peers or AI friends for these people. So that's the positive side I can think of this finding. But then on the negative side, I think it's more urgent, which is, as you mentioned, about the opinion manipulation, especially on social media. It's really hard to tell the bots with the human users. So if the platform doesn't have the identification, sometimes I cannot even tell if the messages is from AI or from humans. But previously, our understanding is still about, if one bot, it can have some misinformation, and that's dangerous. But now think about another case is there are so many bots around you in your social networks. You cannot, even if you know they are AI, you still tend to agree with them because they are more. So I think that brings the issues to another level, and we need to have some like policymakers or platform regulations about such thing.
In the limitations section of the paper, you talk briefly about some of the sentiments, and you mentioned this about some of the participants who expressed skepticism about the agent's ability to kind of genuinely form opinions. And the participants knew that they were interacting with AI agents.
Yes, they knew.
Do you think that you would have seen a different result in a blind study where they don't know whether this is a group of people or a group of agents?
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. I think that's very, I would say like that's a question raised by all the reviewers for this study. It's very important, but I think the answer is yes. So whether the participants know they are interacting with AI or agents will definitely make difference on their results. But I think it's from a different aspect or different side of the results. So because in our study, we do make it implicit for users that they will be interacting with the AI agents, right? And but built on previous research, so there are some previous work in this human interaction which shows that when people are aware that they are talking to a machine, they tend to be more resistant or skeptical. So as say in the limitation. So when we think about our current results, which is when they have such awareness, they still be influenced by the agent's opinions. So hypothetically, in a blind study, when they don't know, I think the results will just be more significant.
Right. So they'll be influenced, but to what extent the difference will be. Because to your point, when you see on social media what is AI, what is not, would those labels even help? I'm extrapolating a little bit. Obviously, this is not in your study, but I'm saying it could, it kind of sets up the idea that it might help a little bit, but people will still be influenced by this anyway, whether they know it's AI or not.
Yes. So that's the dangerous part. So I think previously most of us just thought the issue is about whether people know they are interacting with AI. But I think it's time to update the mindset, which is even though we know it's AI, people still being influenced. So that's the significant part.
What are some of the limitations of this study?
Okay, I think I can talk about some that we mentioned in the paper and some not mentioned in the paper. So I think in the paper, we talk about the rigor of the experiment design. It could be the topic selection. So in our aspect, we want to start from more obvious parts, such as the painting, because people's opinions about paintings is more like subjective. So if someone else is having some opinions, you might more likely to change your opinions. But for some objective topics, like political vote or some sort of things, it might be harder to change your opinions just by giving you some social influence. So I think that is definitely one of the limitations of the current study. And also the participants' demographic, we have to admit that it's not very large. And so because it's like exploratory study, and I think in the future we really want to recruit 5,000 participants from 10 different countries and see whether the results will be still significant or not. So I think that's some of the ambitious future goal. So I also want to talk about one limitation that's not mentioned in the paper, which is the dynamics of the agents. So because in our current work, we just make all the agents have the same opinion. And that is because when we talk about social influence, we think about groups with similar opinions will likely to influence people's opinions. If they don't, there's no point to influence you, right? But I think we also got suggestion that in the real world cases, the opinions might be complex. So if in the future we can deploy a very complex agent society and with all kinds of different opinions by different agent personas, it might also be interested to see people's reactions.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting. So the second limitation, the demographics, that's also kind of scary because you,
Mm-hmm.
like a study like that, like a more comprehensive study, you could identify like different segments of a population that are more susceptible to being influenced, which countries are more susceptible. And armed with that knowledge, like if you were somebody if you were in the demographic group that is more susceptible, would being armed with that knowledge actually help you be more skeptical, or could then that be leveraged by other nefarious actors to target different populations? Like all of that gets into this really kind of risky area. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that's a question that is very relevant to the risks of this study and
Mm-hmm.
future concerns. So actually, we covered it in the research questions 3, where we involved some demographics like the age, gender, and education level. And actually, also we have some hypotheses like we thought older people might be more susceptible to the agent influence. But actually, the result is different. So actually, what we found is younger people are more likely to be influenced by the multi-agent, and I think that might be because, so we don't know for sure, but that might be because when you are young, people are more likely to be influenced by others. But when you are becoming older, your conformity tendency like tends to decrease. So I think that
Right,
could
you're like
be.
stuck in your ways once you're old,
Yes,
right? That's what people
yes,
say. Yeah.
yes, yes.
I've been talking to some other researchers about the limitations LLMs have with multi-turn like conversation accuracy.
Mm,
And one of the things that has come up in their research is how agent frameworks could potentially have more innate capabilities to handle multi-turn conversations than just the LLM.
mm.
What are your thoughts on that and on multi-agent systems kind of handling that multi-turn
Mhm.
conversations that LLMs struggle with or seems to struggle with?
Oh, yeah. That's like definitely a very relevant topic from the, I think, the NLP uh, topics. So first of all, I think the like current limitation of the multi-turn conversation, it's very important to our study because initially when we build our multi-agent frameworks, we try to use the like native agents supported by LLM, and so like there are just several different agents with different memories and conversation prompts, so users can just talk with them and they will come up freely. But then we found this is not working so well because the native LLM they cannot find appropriate time to respond to you, and the conversation is really a mess. So when in the real experiment, we use the mixed setup of the rule-based conversation and the AI conversation. So like for some part of the discussion, we have a fixed prompt or fixed sentence. Say now it's the like next round of conversation. Someone should be talking. So that's how we implement our system, and that's all because the current multi-turn conversation is not ideal, and we cannot just get the uh, very well simulation of a group discussion. So I think
Right.
there's more efforts should be put on this direction. And although I think I'm not expert in this, but I think from just a traditional NLP approach, uh, and from what I've seen, I think there's currently very lack of the enough data set about the multi-turn conversation in human groups. And
Mm.
you can know only with that we can know what kind of elements can compose a like appropriate multi-turn conversation like in the real world. and only in that way we can build the multi-turn LLM to like make people feel it's real.
All right, so you shared with us a little bit about some of the interesting potential like extensions of this work. Um, what what's the future for you? What do you have coming up? Anything exciting? Any releases upcoming?
Yeah, I think we have some under review works and we hope that can be released in the near future. So one of the direction we work on is still following the influence of multi-agents, where we want to leverage its positive aspect and see how it can change humans. So one project we have is about changing people's pro-social behaviors, which means like we want to do something good to people, and this pro-social behavior is usually formed by the social norms. So if you are in a society with people like to pro-social, you will more likely to pro-social, right? So in our ongoing project, we want to say like if you're interacting with multi-agent who wants to pro-social, would that affect your behaviors? And the interesting thing about this is because the task, which is about donation. So I think that's a follow-up of previous work on social topics because like when talking about topics, it's still very easy to be influenced. You can just change your thoughts, right? But for the donation, it's about money. So if the agent can persuade you to donate more, I think that's a very solid finding to prove that agents influence on humans. Yeah, I think it's an interesting part about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I hope that work can be released soon. And also another direction we explore is like maybe in the education settings where you interact with multiple agents, they have very healthy anti-procrastination behaviors. So we want to see like when students with such multi-agent system, would that encourage them to be good at managing time and uh, anti-procrastination. So I think that's also interesting because I am a like procrastinate person in a lot of times. So yeah, I just very care about this project's result.
Yeah,
Yes.
somebody motivating you. Very
Yes.
cool. All right, yeah, that's exciting. Hopefully we can stay up to date. I'm gonna put, links to your work in the description so that people can follow your work as it
Okay.
is released. Thank you, Holly, for taking the time to discuss your work with us. It's really exciting.
Thank you so much.